Hey, it's Thursday. It's 10 a.m. What's going on, Stacy?
Just what I do every Thursday. Hang out with you in the treehouse.
Welcome to Real Estate Now, everybody. We are jumping into a new show. It's March already. Here we go. March.
Yeah.
I'm looking out the window, and I gotta say, March is not coming in much like a lion this year. Whoa, where'd you go?
I was looking out my window.
I thought you were taking the elevator to the basement.
It's a really big window, but I have the blinds down, so I gotta look under the blind. Sorry.
Awesome. So anyway, maybe the lion will show up this weekend, but here we are, March, 2 months down, 1/6 the way all the way through the year already. And we got a great show lined up. We're going to talk about credit and how Credit Karma is lying to you, sort of. We'll talk about sorta. But before we jump into that and bring our guest in today, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to talk about interest rates. There it is. Mortgage rates hit 3%. I think we should have some sound effects. If Troy was here, he'd be like, or something. But, yeah. Anyway, so the rates have gone up a little bit. The sky is not falling, and I just want everybody to realize that. One thing that is really, really great about the rate environment that we're still in, rates are at 3%. That's what's great about the rate environment that we're in.
I know, it wasn't too long ago where we were like, do you think we'll fall below 3%? I mean, that was like 90 days ago, right? So this is not, but now people think that's been our rate for 20 years. I mean, it's really crazy the psychology people get with interest rates.
Yeah, well, I mean, the graph speaks for itself right here. If we click back 1 year, March 19th, 2020, 30-year was at 3.625. So year over year, we're still almost 3/4 of a point better in rate. We're 5/8 better in rate. So it's still a great time to buy. I can tell you from the clients that I've been speaking with as far as pre-approval and refinances, the great thing is this has kind of inspired all of you sitting on the sidelines that are like, oh, rates are going to get better. Rates are going to get better. We may have seen the trough, right? We very well may have seen the trough with the stimulus package passed, with more COVID vaccines going on. We could be back on the upswing. So you guys are getting off the fence now and you're refinancing, which is great. Get her done. Yeah, absolutely. And then all the folks that are coming out of the woodwork to buy, they're still there. There's lots of people that I am pre-approving hand over fist trying to get into housing. So this rate environment's not going to slow down the housing market. So if you're thinking that you're going to sit on the sidelines and wait for rates to go up a little bit to get rid of some buyers, I think you're waiting for Godot, so to speak. I'm a theater major. I love to reference theatrical productions. You're waiting for something.
So that just went over like 95% of everybody's head, but I'm glad you reached your theater people.
Yeah, I reached my theater people with this. So all of you, I'm excited for you to get back out on the boards when we can open up theater houses and bring people back into an auditorium. But anyway, that's enough about rates. Still a great time to make it happen. If you're buying, if you're refinancing, get her done, make it happen, because 3% is cheap money. So without further ado, let's change topics a little bit. Today we dive into the topic of credit. So to help us, we're bringing in an expert with over 10 years of experience in that field. Nicole with B Squared Credit is here with us. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Glad I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you are you're a go-to credit expert. You're helping us over here at Loan Depot. All of us loan officers understand credit better. Help us. Let's talk about the first hurdle. Actually, hold on. Before we talk about the first hurdle, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do for your clients before I jump down that rabbit hole?
Awesome. Thank you. So B Squared was born 9 years ago, but prior to that, I worked for Fico, the credit scoring company, Fair Isaac. So my background has always been in predictive analytics, and really just, having the gift of being able to look at a credit report and figure out if you tell me you need 5-point improvement for your customer, 200-point improvement, doesn't really matter. we can always look at the credit and figure out a game plan and, give that as part of the free consultation to your clients. And then you match the right service or solution to that. So for us at B Squared, we do a lot of student loan modifications, government student loan modifications. If you've been in default, if you have a lot of loans, it helps sometimes to consolidate them. And then we do anything related to credit repairs. Sometimes it's settlement work. Sometimes it's credit bureau dispute letters. Sometimes it's CFPB complaints because something's misreporting. And there's a lot of ways to skin a cat to raise a credit score. And so really just having the gift of knowledge that I can really educate the clients. I'm super passionate about making sure when that client's done working with me, they know exactly what to do long-term to get to that magic 850.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you and I are hanging out in Washington. You're in SoCal. Do you work with people all over the country or just West Coast? What do you?
Yeah, so we are national. We have all of our business is really coming from loan officers. That's kind of the way that we started our company. Now we have a lot of past clients that refer their friends and family, which has been nice. But really just leveraging the partnership with our loan officers and realtors that refer us their business. So ultimately, you guys are my client, your clients are my client. And very, very grateful to be able, after 9 years, to maintain 5-star reviews everywhere on social media, which is unheard of in our industry because unfortunately it's fraught with bad actors. And so we really have to separate ourselves. And, a lot of credit repair companies just focus on cleaning up the negative part of a credit report. And, one of the things we talked about earlier this week when I met with your team is that's only 35% of your credit score, right? So if you visualize a pie chart, which represents your credit score, 35% is, do you pay your bills on time? Well, yes, credit repair, settlement work, those things can help with that part. But the other 65% is, how are you managing your good credit? How mature is it? How much of your open to buy and your credit cards are you using? Do you have a nice mix of account types? So all of that is something that we do through coaching and education so that the client has a very specific task list of, these are the things I need to go off and do while you're helping me with the 35%. So at the end of the engagement, their scores are as high as possible. And ultimately, not only can they get approved for the home loan that their dream house, but they're going to do it at a better rate because, as you guys know, everything's risk-based pricing. So the higher we can get those scores, the better, their rates are going to be in their terms and their fees.
Yeah, so important. So important. There's a
huge your guys' job, right? I mean, credit is an integral part of what you guys need. Not only proof of income and employment, but credit, and not only from a credit score, but then you have the underwriting criteria. And so the partners I work best with are those that say, hey, based on this loan program, I need a 640 and I need no collections that total up over $2,000 that are non-medical, right? So the more you can tell me about the loan program you're trying to match for your client, the more I can then make sure that, I customize the right plan to meet that loan program.
Awesome.
Can you touch on that graph that you showed our team earlier so that I don't think we have it to pull up, but you mentioned the 35% and the 65%. Are you stating, like, you look at all of it and some companies only look at 35, or do you just focus on the 65?
Oh yeah. So no, I focus on 100%. And that's, so you might call me and say, gosh, I have this one collection. How much will it raise the credit score if we get this collection off? I can't estimate that without seeing the whole report because you're asking me a question that's only impacting 35% of the credit score, right? So I have to understand how is the health of the rest of the report. So no, absolutely. We're looking at the whole picture and we're developing improvement plans based on each metric that, is utilized in that credit score calculation. Yeah.
So it's without seeing that whole credit score, you'd be like taking shots in the dark. It's like, what are we trying to do?
And that's the hard thing with clients that are trying to fix their credit on their own, or they're out there on the internet. It's kind of like diagnosing your own health issue, right? Ultimately, some of those recommendations are very generic. Like I have clients that come to me with 15 credit cards. That's excessive. And if you think of the credit score assesses risk. Well, when you have somebody with excessive behavior, too many credit cards, even if they don't have high balances on those cards, excessive is excessive and it impacts risk. So sometimes for clients, we got to close 10 of those accounts. We have to close 5 of those accounts, right? So
what is that consumer reading, Nicole, to make them think opening 15 cards is a good thing?
Oh,
like, well, they find
reading that more
right? Excited. Well,
Sorry,
they read somewhere that having open credit is really important. And you have to remember, clients come to me from every life path. I feel like, I'm really big in nutrition and fitness, and I kind of feel like in some ways I'm a trainer. Come with different issues. Some people eat when they're stressed. Some people shop when they're stressed. Some people don't ever have a household budget. They don't know where to, they don't know, and so I'm coaching them in a way that hopefully can get to the root of why they have their issues. It could have been a medical event, been a divorce, but it also could be you never learn to manage a budget and you go out and you shop when you're stressed. So a lot of people come to me with excessive behavioral issues in general. It's hard to tell over the phone, but sometimes I can look at the credit report and go, okay, this person really needs to use their bank auto pay system because they're not organized enough to go and pay their bills manually on time. I'll say, I can report, hey, how are you paying your bills? Oh, I call it in. Okay, well, let's get organized, right? So just trying to ask the right questions to understand what is that client specific challenge that is causing this specific issue.
Yeah,
I have nothing auto pay. Otherwise, it doesn't. It just doesn't happen. It's a long time to do that.
Yeah, and at least just pay the minimum payments that way, and then maybe once a month sit down and then pay everything off. Because obviously, I want you to pay your credit cards off in full. I don't want you throwing away money on bank fees and finance charges. But maybe on the 15th when my bill is due, I'm not sure that I can pay the whole balance. And so maybe I just put that automated payment of at least the minimum, but then I go back and say, okay, I'm going to allocate $2,000 to this account. And so just at least minimums, auto pay, I think is really helpful. Yeah. But I think the one thing I talked about that I love that you kind of started with the subject is, is Credit Karma wrong? And I think that's where, gosh, consumers are just so confused, and I don't blame them. So, I'm happy to talk about why Credit Karma is wrong and when to trust it and when not to trust it.
Yep. So I have it right here on my phone, right? Mm-hmm. So Credit Karma tells me one thing, and this happens to us so often, and it's kind of to me information overload, because now not only is Credit Karma there, we have every single credit card that you can sign up for will now monitor your credit and send you a monthly score. And everybody wants to, you can go to Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax and sign up for their score there. So people have a lot of different data points, but those data points don't necessarily translate to a mortgage application. So could you speak to that?
Before we go there, really quick though, Keith, can you explain to just whoever's out there what Credit Karma is? Because not everybody has Credit Karma on their phone.
Gotcha. So Credit Karma is a credit monitoring service, and I will defer to Nicole as far as what data set they use. But it gives you Experian and TransUnion as far as what their consumer credit score is, and it looks at your credit accounts every month and updates every month and shows you where you're at. So it does give you some suggestions on what you could do to maybe pay down balances or pay off a balance, or hey, something is showing delinquent now, you should go pay that off.
Is there a fee for that?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because they're taking the Zillow approach to credit, right? So they want everybody to download their app, so then they could solicit all these financial institutions, credit cards, consumer consolidation debt programs, and mortgage.
Right. Well, and they sell your data.
I don't even know what the Zillow approach is. That'll be a whole different topic. But yeah, you might have. I don't know that you coined that. I probably can't give that to you, but that's great. So Nicole, what do you want to share about Credit Karma?
Well, so Credit Karma, Identity IQ, Privacy Guard, these are LifeLock, right? These are all just credit monitoring tools. They do have other services like fraud, identity monitoring, etc. The data sets that they get are all the same, right? They go and get their raw data from TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Now, Credit Karma doesn't get Experian. That's one reason I can't use it, because if somebody comes to me with Credit Karma, I say, do you want me to fix all 3 credit bureaus, or do you want me just to fix 2? So it's an obvious answer that's not the right solution to use for what I need, because we want to fix them all. So each company has their own unique data set. They're for-profit. They compete against each other. They do not share data, credit reporting data, okay? So what does that mean? We have to rely on the creditors to report the same data to all three data companies, right? The data companies aggregate the data, and then they present it in the credit report. So the data sets are the same. What's different are the scoring models, the analytics that utilize that data to output a score. That score represents the level of trustworthiness that each of us are. And I say that because it determines whether we get approved or declined. It determines what we get charged for our accounts that we're approved for. So ultimately, that data and having clean data is so important. Clean, accurate, verifiable data. So the data sets are the same. The scoring models are different. So I'm happy to jump into that if you'd like me to. Okay, great.
You're muted.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yes, please jump into that. Sorry, my dog is barking, so I turned it on.
Okay, so the booklet that I hope you can share the link to with this event is the credit scoring booklet that we published a few years ago. We maintain it annually. But the credit booklet I developed because the most common question I get, and I think probably the most common question you may get, is why when I go to Credit Karma or Identity IQ or I look at my bank statement, why does it say my score is one score, like let's say a 680 on Credit Karma, but then I go and Keith pulls my credit and I apply for a home loan and he tells me it's a 580. That's literally a 100-point difference. How is that even possible? And I'm telling you, it happens all. I'm sure you guys have plenty of horror stories where it's just so confusing. And guess what? The client's mad at you, right? Because your score. So
True.
I get to be with your client when they come to me and say, well, Keith's using the wrong score, or this score is not accurate because I've been tracking my credit for a while and I know it's a 680. And so that I can't spend a lot of time educating the clients on why that is, because ultimately I want to get to the solution. I want to get to how are we going to fix this. So this booklet is really the guide to walk through. And really what it says is there's three variables that impact your credit score. Bureau. So remember, we just talked about TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. They all have three unique data sets. And by the way, you can't force something to report to all three. There are many companies, especially collection agencies, that only report to one or two. You can't force it, even though we have some new tools out there where we can start reporting rent and utilities. I'm not going to talk about that today. But the bureau data is unique across bureaus. The brand is the biggest reason scores differ in the conversation we're having today. But the final one is by day, right? It's a living, breathing credit report. Every day, more information is getting reported and updated about us, which is why, the credit monitoring tools can be really helpful, because as our data changes, they can send you a flag that says, hey, your score's changed. Come in and figure out why, right? And they can give you some indicators of why your score is either higher or lower. So again, three variables that impact credit scores: bureau, brand, and day. So the slide that you have up is really talking about, let's go to the next one. We'll come back to catch up. Let's go to this one for a minute. So Credit Karma, Identity IQ, a lot of those companies are using Vantage scores. It's in the little fine print. Everyone just refers to it as a credit score. So no wonder why everyone's confused. No one tells us what brand we're getting. And when you look at this, you can see why it is. The calculations of how that gets calculated is just different, right? If you don't pay your bills on time, your FICO score is impacted by 35%, based on your payment history. But if you go to the Vantage model, you can see it's only 32%. So for somebody who has derogatory information, negative information on their credit report, their FICO score is going to be more heavily impacted than their Vantage score, right? And the next one, amount used. Well, so that means revolving utilization rate. How much of your open to buy on your credit cards, as an example, are you using? Well, if you're using up a lot of your credit available credit limit, that's going to impact 30% of your FICO credit score, where if you go to Vantage, it's only 23%. So my point is they're just weighted differently. So now if we go back to the catch-up analogy, I'd love to use this as kind of a teaching tool, because I think it helps explain. We go to the store, we can see on the condiment aisle all these varieties of ketchup. Heinz is like the FICO, the Fair Isaac of the world, that 90% of the world market, like restaurants and that's what people purchase is Heinz. Now, even within Heinz, by the way, we didn't get into this the other day, but there's a variety of Heinz, right? You have organic, you have spicy. So we can't think of Heinz as a standalone one product, but we'll get back to that in a minute. But Heinz owns the market. You know, they're more expensive. They have better quality products. They have less corn syrup, less sugar, etc. But it's still ketchup, right? So when I am throwing my son a birthday party, I might go to Vons and go, gosh, you know what? I'm just going to get this $2 Safeway branded, Vons branded ketchup, because at the end of my barbecue, which we're going to do at the beach, I'm going to throw it away anyways. And kids know it is ketchup. They don't care that it has corn syrup in it. And so it's still ketchup, but I paid $2 for that versus Heinz. Maybe I paid $6 for the organic one that I keep in my refrigerator for the next 2 years, right?
Right.
So to bring it back to FICO and credit scoring, the generic brand is the Vantage credit score. It's cheap, it's easy to get, and that's why a lot of companies, credit monitoring companies, present the FICO scores the Vantage scores to us, because then they can give us an affordable option for credit monitoring. However, what I tell clients is, if you're getting ready to buy a house, maybe go to myfico.com and get your true FICO scores, rather than, you know, these generic, what I call FACO credit scores, which are Vantage, Credit Expert, all these other branded credit scores. There's several of them out there. So myFICO is the source. FICO owns and operates that, and they can present all your FICO scores. So let's go back to how Heinz has multiple varieties of Heinz ketchup. Well, FICO, when you go pull the myFICO report, it's going to give you your FICO mortgage model. It's going to give you your FICO auto, your FICO credit card, your FICO general. It's almost FICO overload on credit scoring models. But it's important to know that the credit scores differ based on your past experience. If you've never had a mortgage, your FICO mortgage score is probably going to be lower than maybe your FICO credit card, where you've done great with paying your credit cards on time. So again, we've got the major brands. We've got the generic brands like Vantage, like Credit Expert. They serve a purpose. They give us a nice baseline. It's nice for monitoring in a cheap way. But when we're getting ready to make a major purchase, or even if we're monitoring our credit card statements, we're generally getting FICO. But even that, we don't know what FICO model we're getting. It's very rare. Your reports, by the way, tell us that. But when they go to FICO, go get an auto, it doesn't say, oh, you're getting the FICO Auto 3.0 model. You know, it's just they're getting a FICO score. So there's a lot of confusion there, but ultimately the brand really matters. It's the same credit score idea. It just has different ingredients and different amounts, and therefore the output in the score is different.
Gotcha.
So is there no third-party company that operates like a Heinz that can tell you the same thing, or it's the only one to go to myfico.com?
So FICO, and maybe I actually didn't even say this, I think this will answer your question. FICO is just an analytical tool. They don't own any of the data. They don't use their own data. They go and overlay their model into the data sets at TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, right? So that's why even the bureau scores between bureaus, even if we're using the same FICO mortgage model, are different, right? So you guys pull a credit report and you guys drop the high and the low score and you price off the middle. That's important because we have unique data. Same scoring model in your situation, but the data is just different. Where if I go out and get an auto, they're just going to pull one score and it's their preferred vendor. We don't get to determine, hey, I like my Experian score. Can you pull my Experian? It doesn't really work that way. We don't get to make that decision. Did I answer your question, Stacey?
Yeah, for sure. I'm surprised we don't have it in the chat. So I was asking for our population, but yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, let me ask one other question, because so you say when we pull a FICO score, when you pull a credit report, it shows the three: TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. So you hinted at it a little earlier, but I wanted to circle back on this point because it's a super important point. How do they vary? Why is Experian at a 710 and Equifax is at a 795 and TransUnion's in the middle at a 740? How can there be such a difference between the three?
Data is just different. So I'll give you an example. I'm down here in San Diego, and if you get a parking ticket in San Diego, they only report that collection to Experian. They don't report it to TransUnion and Equifax. There's just a lot of companies that do not report across all three bureaus because it's expensive. That's really what it comes down to. They're not required to. So ultimately, it's their decision.
Boom. There it is.
This reporting on one bureau, it could be how the bureaus are taking in that data and aggregating it and matching it to your credit file. A lot of times that matching logic is really complicated. They drop vowels, they use only the last 4 digits of the social. There's all this matching logic to get to the report. And TransUnion and Equifax might match it correctly, but Experian can't match it, and therefore that account isn't ever presented on Experian. So that goes back to making sure when you're looking at your credit bureau data that your profile data, which is your PII, your personally identifiable information, is part of the credit report, which is, you know, your name, your date of birth, your past addresses, your employer. It's important that that information is managed correctly and accurate because it impacts the matching abilities from the bureaus and the creditors to make sure your data is being, you know, presented properly.
Yeah, super important.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on one last topic because we're getting close to our 30 minutes already. I'm pointing at the imaginary clock in the wall here. But so FHA loans are hardcore on disputes. So can you tell us what a disputed account is and how to get it out of dispute status?
Sure. So when we do what we call a round of credit repair, so let's say you send me a client, I determine that we need to do 3 months of services and it's 2 rounds of credit repair because each round is 40 days. When I send that first set of letters to the credit bureau to dispute derogatory information, the credit bureaus mark that item in dispute during the investigative period. And then the creditor has 30 days to respond. And with COVID, no one's holding them accountable to that, since sometimes 40 days hasn't even been enough. But ultimately, they come back with a decision. When they come back with a decision, it gets updated. If there's a correction or a deletion, it gets updated. And then the dispute mark comes off, right? You can't force that. If I send a round of letters today and 2 weeks from now, the client's like, oh, wait, I'm going to get my loan officer's going to pull the report. It's not even an option. We can't just pull something out of dispute. Now, sometimes a dispute mark lingers after the round of repair is done. And we do have back office phone numbers to call the bureaus to say, hey, this dispute ended 2 months ago. We need you to remove that dispute mark.
Gotcha.
Yeah. You know, one thing I hear a lot that I think is so funny is my loan officer said, don't worry about the medical collections, that those don't impact my home purchase. And that's so not true because it still impacts your credit score. It may not impact the underwriting of the loan, right? Because you exclude that from your 2000 calculation or whatever that underwriting criteria is. But ultimately, one medical collection can drop your score 80 points. It impacts your credit report and your score and your health of your credit.
Wait, did you say 80 points?
It could.
80. Yeah, and that's so
collection. If everything is impeccable, Keith. If everything else is impeccable, it could be 80 points.
Yeah. I wish I had $1 for every time that I had a client say, well, I'm not going to worry about the collections on my report because it's not going to impact my mortgage. And you hit the nail on the head. Qualification purposes, no, you could probably go through with that $200 medical collection just fine, right? However, your longevity, your credit score, and you said it earlier, every single thing is loan level pricing adjustments, right? And one of the big pricing adjustments that you have as far as a factor in the mortgage rates that you pay is your credit score. Yeah. Period. That is it. That's the pinnacle one that you can control. You can't control that you're buying a duplex or a fourplex or whatever. That's what you want to go buy. But when it comes to what's readily in your control, credit is the number one thing.
And it's so misunderstood. And honestly, I know it's hard to figure out who to trust out there. There's a lot of bad credit repair companies. But I'm telling you, if you come to me for a free consultation, it's life-changing. Once you know that plan and you can understand what each thing is impacting you, and then you go, gosh, this is all I wanted, Nicole. I just needed a plan. Prioritize 1, 2, 3 for me. Where do I put my money? How do I do this? And it's so important because people just don't understand it. They've gotten so much misinformation out on the internet. I mean, how do you not want a free credit expert consultation. Like, to me, that's what blows me away. Like, the value of that, you don't have to buy my services. You may not even be a good fit for any of my paid services. You might walk away with free coaching and that's it. So, I don't know why everyone wouldn't want it.
You barely touched on this, Nicole, earlier today, but I don't want the show to end without you tying a bow around it. But why are you in the business? Because I think your passion behind it and your just kindness of understanding will help people feel more comfortable reaching out to you.
Yeah, so in 2008, I was laid off, going through a divorce. My life completely changed. But I had all this background of 13 years at Bank of America. I left there as a vice president of fraud, doing fraud analytics. And then I came to Fico and I did fraud and credit analytics. I mean, I just am so passionate about helping people overcome these life events. I had a crappy life event. My credit score defined me. My 2 houses I owned by myself, everything just defined me. And to have to start over and repair my own credit and then realize what a gift it was to myself and my finances. I just felt so passionate about helping other people. And I had a gift of knowledge that a lot of people don't have. And so it just turned into something really special. I'm really grateful that I've been going 9 years strong.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's awesome. I mean, it really does define your whole life now, especially with how integrated everything has in credit, insurance, mortgages, anything in finance, and now jobs and employment. Employers will not hire you.
65% of employers check your credit, 65%. And then for you guys that are in the financial world, I mean, 100% of you guys have to have good credit and manage your credit well, because they don't want you managing other people's credit and finance if you're not managing your own stuff right.
Yep.
So even if you've got loan teams, your own peers that are watching you guys today, I think it's so important to figure out the process by just going through it yourself. Even if you already have a 720, how do we get you to a 780? Like, go through this process for yourself with us, and then you can learn and then speak more confidently about this partnership that we have together, because, you're going to know it firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Normally, I think of a company like yours where you need the extra 5 points, or, you went through this life event and you need to fix it. But if your score is already high, why not try to get it to the next level? So that's great.
Right. Yeah, anything under 740, I think most of us realize, we get premium pricing, but if it's under 740, why not? It wouldn't hurt. Even if you don't have any negative items, right? There's still opportunities to improve.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. We put your information there in the chat on all of our avenues there. So if you're looking for that free credit consultation, hit up Nicole and her fine folks over there at B2 Credit and make it happen. You got full control, so take it.
Yeah. Will you share the booklet link too?
Yes, I will. Absolutely. I just got to go get it downloaded and find it in the presentation.
Okay.
So thanks again.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks so much for having me, you guys. Take care.
Yep. Well, there you have it. Credit is important, not just in mortgages. So make sure you take control over your own destiny. So yeah, awesome.
Keep in mind how every little detail within our process has so much more behind it. This is just a great example where you think it's just a credit score. There's just so much knowledge, and you need to work with an expert.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us this fine day.
Yes,
Say again?
I said, yes, thank you.
Yeah, right on. Well, enjoy the sunshine before it rains this afternoon, and we'll see you guys next